Charanand Bhakti Vedanta Sai Maharaj Prabhupada ki Go Premanande. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I don't really need this fan.
Oh, thanks.
On everyone else. I didn't really have any topic picked out. If there's anything anyone would like to hear about or any questions anyone has, we can discuss that.
I have one question, Prabhuji.
Please.
Sometimes people say that Bhakti Yoga is good. Some people say Dhyan Yoga is good. Some people say Gyan Yoga is good. But truly speaking, ultimately everything leads to Bhakti Yoga. But before going to Bhakti Yoga, people may have to get through the Gyan Yoga, Karma Yoga, Gyan Yoga, then Bhakti Yoga. How would you put them in order?
Okay, good question. Let's begin, of course, as we always do with Mangalacharan.
Haji.
Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnaveyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Madhvavira Vigopala Svikurya Kripaya Yadi Daivasam Ayahapitva Krishyayustadhyajanaha. In the end of his 10th canto commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur prays in this way: My dear Lord Gopal, only if you accept my words to be your cows will they provide sweet milk and give pleasure to your pure devotees. We have Bhagavad Gita here?
Yes.
As it is?
Yeah.
So, good question. It's a natural question. Even in Bhagavad Gita itself, we find there is Jnana Yoga taught, there's Dhyana Yoga taught, there's Karma Yoga taught. Of course, Bhakti Yoga is there, Sankhya Yoga also is there. So it can be confusing, but there is a method to it. The predecessor acharyas in our sampradaya have described that Bhagavad Gita is very systematic. The first 6 chapters will introduce basic Atma Tattva and what follows from that basic Atma Tattva, or rather what precedes that Atma Tattva, piety, dharma. Athato dharma jignasa. Jaimini begins his Purva Mimamsa Sutra with. And once it's understood that if we have assimilated what is dharma and we're acting as bona fide human beings, therefore we can understand what is Gyan, and that's up until chapter 6. Those two things only he's discussing. Nishkam karma based on Gyan. Gyan means awareness of who I am. And that's where Vedanta Sutra begins, just as the Purva Mimamsa Sutra began, Atato Dharma Jignasa. Vedanta Sutra begins, Atato Brahma Jignasa. What's real here? Who am I actually? So we have to go through these stages, as you said, that unless one is pious, he can't possibly process Gyan. He will misinterpret everything he hears. That's a fact. Because the mind is too sinful. The mind is selfish and colored with fruitive activity and fruitive desires. So everything that comes into the mind will be distorted unless and until one is situated in piety. And that's the importance of karma yoga. Karma yoga should culminate in jnana, adhikar, and jnana means that we realize who I am, that I'm actually not this material body. This material body is a temporary encasement of the spirit soul, but the spirit soul is me. Aham Brahmasmi, this is the Vedanta Sutra says. And that knowledge, though, is hypothetical. If you just have a theoretical awareness of who you are, you understand the nature of the spirit and you identify with spirit, but you can't do anything because then it's no longer Gyan, right? As soon as you apply Gyan, what is it?
Vigyan.
Yeah, Vigyan, exactly. So, real Vigyan actually means bhakti. And the higher stages of Gyan involve meditation on the self and meditation on the supersoul Paramatma. We find this in Bhagavatam. Dhyanavastita tadgatena manasa pashyanti yom yoginaha. And after chapter 6, the acharyas have described that chapters 6 through 12, they discuss the real essence of Bhagavad Gita. And what does chapter 12, anybody know offhand? What is
Bhakti Yoga.
Bhakti Yoga. That is the culmination of the real pith of the Bhagavad Gita. The real essence of Bhagavad Gita is well protected in the beginning by karma and jnana. And then the real pith of it is Bhakti Yoga. And in the end, there is more delineation on all the details, such as the three modes of material nature. You have to know that stuff. And the divisions of faith, how people have different natures, and ultimately, what does it mean to be a real devotee? And the culmination of Bhagavad Gita is what instruction that Krishna repeats twice in Bhagavad Gita? No, that's only once.
Manmana bhava
Manmana bhava mad bhakto. He says it in chapter 9, where the essence is discussed, and he says it again at the end of the book. And what does he say about that at the end of the book? Let's read this, because it bears repeating. He says, of course, he spoke sarva dharman parityajamam ekam sharanam vraja. That's the practical application of the principle. But the principle, he says, is very simple. Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. And he says this twice. So this is the real essence. And he even identifies it that this is the essence of Bhagavad Gita. He says it directly. So, if we look at Bhagavad Gita in this way, as Bhagavad Gita is supposed to be looked at, what does Krishna say in the beginning of chapter 4 about how this science is received? Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo vidahu. Really, he's talking only history here. They did understand it. Who? The Rajarshis. Rajarshis and, the Rishis and the Rajas, both. Higher class people, intelligent people, first class people. They understood this. And how did they understand it? Evam parampara praptam. In this system of Guru Parampara. So if we take that system of Guru Parampara and approach Bhagavad Gita according to that system, according to the way that it should be understood, then we will accept this schema of the Bhagavad Gita. That the Bhakti Yoga is the real essence. It's introduced by necessary preliminaries, karma and jnana, and then it's delineated in the middle of the Bhagavad Gita, and then the details are further confirmed later on. And finally, at the very end, he speaks what we call the Charama Shloka, the most real conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. Surrender unto me completely, he says. And then he repeats what he said in chapter 9. 4 things. Manmana, fix your mind upon me. Or, Bhavamad Bhaktaha, become my devotee. Madhyaji, be my worshipper. Man Namaskuru, offer obeisances to me, bow down. So simple things. Anybody can do this. We don't do it, but we can do it. Why don't we do it? Why don't we bow down to Krishna? Why don't we think about Krishna? Why don't we become his worshipper? Why don't we? Agyan, but the primary symptom or the primary manifestation of that agyan is abhimana. Therefore, he says, what is that? Nirmana moha jita sangha dosha dhyatma nityad vinivarta kamaha. He's talking about what are the qualifications of somebody who can surrender. And what's the first thing that has to go? Mana, nirmana moha jita sangha dosha. Have to conquer the bad association and all the illusions that come from it, and we have to become prideless. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us a very easy shortcut. What did he say? Tranadapi sunichena, tarodapi sahishnuna, amanina manadena, kirtaniya sadaharihi. If you want to chant Hare Krishna all the time, he said, there are 4 things that you have to do. Another 4 things. You have to consider yourself lower than a blade of grass. Jaise Hindi mein ya bolte hain ki kis khet ki muli ho. Anybody ever heard this?
Yes.
So yeah, actually you should feel like that. So tranadapi suniche and turoriva kya sahishnata hona chahiye. You have to have the symptom of your humility will be your tolerance. If you cannot tolerate anything, then how you can say you're humble? You're reserving some pride. And then the further symptoms, these are all proofs. Amani, you become amani. And manada, you give respect. To become freed from pride is only natural if you feel yourself more humble than a blade of grass. To be more tolerant than a tree is only natural if you feel yourself more humble than a blade of grass. But to give respect to others, that's really hard. That is actually hard. How does Sridhar Swami define envy in this world? Anybody ever heard the name Kapila Vatsyayana? Kapila Vatsyayana, the lady. She's a very great scholar in the arts. She was the director of the Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts in New Delhi. And I think she's in politics also. But she made a very provocative statement. You know what she said about envy? Bharatiya logon ka sthayi bhav kya hai? Irshya. She gave this answer, not me.
Okay.
This is her answer. Envy. She seems to feel that way. I'm not going to make any judgments. But we have envy. We are envious. And Sridhar Swami defines envy. What is the definition of envy? Parotkarshasahanam. Inability to tolerate when somebody else rises. Somebody else comes up in this world, we can't stand it. Oh, he's going to be a threat to me, right? This is what we think. So these are some of the problems that we have to encounter practically if we're really serious about making any spiritual advancement. And this is the proof of someone who has made spiritual advancement. One time Srila Prabhupada asked someone, would you people in ISKCON, do you follow any particular austerities? And Prabhupada said, yes, we follow 4 austerities. What are those 4 austerities?
Not drinking, not eating meat.
It's a trick question, folks.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks we're going to say that, but Prabhupada didn't say that. At least not on this occasion. No, what you're saying is true. So he thought, hey, lekin, Prabhupada ne kaha is occasion par. He said, 4 austerities: to be more humble than the blade of grass, to be more tolerant than a tree, to give respect to others, to not expect any honor. Very difficult. It's really an austerity. So these symptoms will be there in someone who has realized Bhagavad Gita. In fact, Sanatana Goswami in his Brihad Bhagavatamritam, he also says, Prema, love of Godhead, pure love of Krishna, Prema, Krishna Prema, it is non-different from absolute and unconditional humility. Bas. If you have absolute humility, which is unconditional humility, you also have Krishna Prema. Think about it. It's quite something to think about. So, Bhagavad Gita has this structure that really Bhakti Yoga is being taught here, and it's very clear by the end of the chapter. Even in the middle of the Bhagavad Gita, there are 4 seed verses of Bhagavad Gita. Anybody know those? You've heard of that? Chatushloki Bhagavad Gita. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattas sarvam pravartate iti mitva bhajanti mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. Someone understands me to be the source of everything, and someone who understands that nothing is superior to me, that person is going to worship me. Bhava samanvitaha. That sounds a lot like bhakti, doesn't it? Iti madva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. And then he says, Kaise? Mad chitta mad gata prana bodhayantah parasparam katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti charamanti cha. What does that mean? His mind is always on me, mad chitta. And mad gata prana, he can't live without me. Just like in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita we saw, how is Duryodhana describing his army? All these men?
They'll give their life to me.
Tyakta jivitaha. They've already given their lives to me, as if prophetically spoken, isn't it? And none of those men went home from that battle. Tyakta jivitaha. But they gave it to the wrong person. So Krishna says, Madgada prana. And bodhayantaha parasparam. Devotees, like we're doing tonight, we're discussing, enlightening one another, conversing about me. Katayantascha. Last line. Tushyanti cha ramanti cha. What does tushyanti mean?
Satisfied. Content.
Yeah, he's contented. Tushyate. And what does ramate mean?
Involved.
Wondering.
Relishing.
Not wondering, that's brahmyate. This is
Ramanti
ramante.
means
Relation.
involved and become one with God.
No.
Fully
No.
involved.
Ramante means to
Pleasing.
Enjoy.
Yeah. So they're very similar, but they're distinct actually. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Tushyanti means they're satisfied that they have an opportunity to hear and chant about Krishna while they're practicing even Vaidhi sadhana, like us. We're just practicing like, what do we call? Bhakti with training wheels.
Yes.
Probate bhakti. That's called Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. And when we actually become mature due to developing this bhava that Krishna has already mentioned, bhava samanvitahona, then ramanticha. Then we can actually enjoy the real bliss of spiritual life. So that's the second of the seed verses. Then he says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. One might ask, well, okay, but how do I get to that point? And Krishna said, I will give you the intelligence. All you have to do is worship me and try your best to worship me, kaise? Priti purvaka, with love. For example, we all go to the temple. What do we do when we go to the temple? We put, $1.25 in the hundi, and we say, Krishna, please give me more time with your wife. Think about it.
Shri Lakshmi ji.
Lakshmi. We're praying for money, isn't it? Artarthi. That's what he says,
Always
right?
asking for money.
4 kinds of people come to the temple, and generally we know that everybody's asking for money. But money means Lakshmi Devi. And Lakshmi Devi already belongs to someone else. Who is that? The very person you're praying to.
Yeah.
For Lakshmi.
Honey.
Think about what we're doing. This is not pure bhakti. It's good. We don't discourage. But pure bhakti means Krishna, you go to the temple and instead of praying, please, I need some money, let me get the new Lexus, may my daughter have a nice wedding, may my son pass his exam, may I have enough prestige. All these things, this is what we're interested in. Who goes to the temple and says, Krishna, I love you. I brought you this flower.
I do that, but then
you
I add the
devotees
second part
here.
also.
Yeah.
I do the second part also.
Yeah.
One ye de do, wo de do,
So
something.
that means Mishra Bhakti.
Yes.
But the principle is there. Pure Bhakti means Priti Purvakam. Bhajatam Priti Purvakam. That is what it means to be Satata Yukta, constantly engaged. Okay? And then the final verse, he's expanding upon this same principle. How do we get there? Tesham evanupam partham aham jnana jamtamaha nashayami atma bhavastho jnana deepena bhasvata. I give them mercy. I destroy the ignorance in their hearts. I enlighten them with the shining lamp of knowledge. This is Krishna's mercy. So that's the essence of Bhagavad Gita. The practical conclusion is Sarva Dharman Parititya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. Me only, or my devotees, it's implied. So this is people, you can find these other topics in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, but they're in the beginning for a reason, because they're preliminary. The fact is that the real constitutional position of the soul doesn't necessarily involve karma. It doesn't necessarily involve jnana. It involves only bhakti. Bhagavatam also tells us this. Muktir hitvan yatha rupam surupena vyavasthitihi. Mukti means to shed all extraneous impositions on the coverings of the soul and engage in your eternal constitution. Surupena vyavasthiti. And that is bhakti. Krishna, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ne kaha ki jiver sharopai Krishna nityodash. The actual constitution of the jiva is to be an eternal servant of Krishna. So these are all this is the real eternal platform of activity. These other things are mundane coverings. Both karma and gyan, in that they're non-devotional, they're extrinsic to the soul. Only thing that's really internal, part of us, therefore we call it Jaiva Dharma, or Sanatan Dharma, or Paro Dharma. That thing which is intrinsic within us, our Swarup, our ontology, to use a fancy Latin word, that means Krishna Bhakti only. So the Bhagavad Gita isn't necessarily teaching only Bhakti. Now your point is valid, that we do have to cultivate piety in the beginning. In the last 3 years that he was with us, Srila Prabhupada emphasized, he gave about 80% of his instructions on the topic of dharma. Why? Because he saw his own disciples, they have funky material lives, and they have trouble keeping their vows. Sometimes they don't chant their rounds, or they can't stay faithful even to their spouses, and he saw that these things were happening. And therefore he felt that the society has to be purified on that level. That's called, in chapter 16 and in chapter 13 also, sattva samshuddhi, purification of one's existence. That is effected through dharma. And we said in the beginning, it's not enough to be a biologically correct human being, right? Because humanity is not defined by your DNA. It's actually defined by dharma. If you adhere to dharma, then you are a human being. If you do not adhere to dharma, then you're not really, you're not truly speaking a human being. In chapter 3, Krishna talks about this. What is the subject of chapter 3? We mentioned it already.
Karma Yoga.
Yeah, Karma Yoga. Everybody knows this. So in chapter 3, text number 31, he mentions, Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha Shabdhavanto anasuyanto muchyante tevi karmabhihi. Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. That's karma yoga. In the beginning, we have to become pious, and to become pious means we have to do our own duty, not someone else's duty, and not vidharma either, or what is the opposite of dharma?
Akarma,
Adharma. Adharma. So, and Prabhupada explains this in the purport. He says, one should have firm faith in this injunction without envying the Lord. One should, he said that an ordinary man with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord, but because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. All the acharyas, I was studying the commentaries on this verse from Ramanuja and Acharya and Sridhar Swami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Baladev Bhushan, at least those four, in addition to Prabhupada's purport. They all agree, even if your own prescribed duty is difficult to perform, you still have to do it because it will elevate you. Even if you cannot do it, that's okay. We don't care if you're successful or not. Kyonki, Krishna says, every endeavor in this world has some flaw. Nobody's ever perfect. We can't do anything by ourselves perfectly. But if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, then Krishna himself will purify us internally by that dharma. That is the characteristic of dharma. It purifies the heart. That's why he says, we were discussing on the way over here, twice, another one of those instructions that he gives twice in Bhagavad Gita. Yajna dana tapaschaiva pavanani manishnaha. Sacrifice, charity, austerity. These things should never be given up because they purify even great souls. He says it twice. There's power in these words. There's power in these processes. So you become a human being by dharma, by performing your dharma. Then you can develop this spiritual awareness. And on that platform, you can properly execute bhakti. What does Krishna say about this in chapter 18? Anybody know? Param bhaktim, labate param bhaktim. I'll give you a hint. Brahmabhuta.
Brahmabhuta prasannatma.
Na shoshati na kamshati. Samasarveshu bhuteshu. Mad bhaktim labate param. He says, when you have understood the nature of spirit and when you only identify yourself as spirit, no more you hanker after things you don't have, no longer you're envious of things that others have and you don't. And therefore, you can see all living beings equally. In that state, he says, then you get param bhakti. So that's the higher taste that we were mentioning before. That's mature bhakti. But that kind of bhakti, we don't see it so much, because it can only come in those who have undergone these prerequisite processes. It's kind of like when we were in college, remember? You cannot take an advanced physics class if you've not passed algebra. It's a prerequisite course. Sometimes you have to remove deficiencies in order to qualify to take the course also, isn't it? When I was, because I joined ISKCON too young. So, I didn't have my foreign language credits from my high school, right? So I had to remove that deficiency by taking foreign language courses and not getting credit for them. So that's what it's like when you're sinful. That's what it's like for me, at least. I didn't have any clue about Krishna consciousness when I was born. But, the process itself is so powerful that it carries you, it automatically affects the purification of dharma. It automatically elevates you to the platform of jnana, and beyond that, it confers upon you real bhakti, param bhakti. That's uttama bhakti, means anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadhyana pratam anukuliyena krishnanushilanam bhakti. This is what Goswami defines. Pure devotional service. So yeah, this is our quick overview of Bhagavad Gita. I hope it puts things into perspective. The point that I'd like to end on, because it should be made emphatic and explicitly so, is that you don't have to separately perform dharma, you don't have to separately perform jnana, you don't have to separately perform yoga, you don't have to separately do any of these things. All of them are included as, within the umbrella of bhakti yoga. So just perform sincere bhakti according to the Guru Parampara system, under the guidance of a proper guru. And as Krishna says, bhajatam priti purvakam, everything will be supplied to you. You will realize everything. Let me just finish with one verse from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Sorry. Yeah, it is Shvetashvatara Upanishad. And it is the concluding verse of the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. That means it's the last word of that Upanishad. What is it? Yasya deve parabhaktir yatha deve yatha guru. Tasyaiti kathatha hirtaha prakashante mahatmana. When one has equal faith in the Supreme Lord and in his bona fide spiritual master, then all the realizations of the Vedas are going to be given to him, as if automatically. This is the point. So this is how we advance. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada. Getting the mercy of the Lord's devotee is to get the Lord's mercy. Usually that's how his mercy is conveyed to us. It comes to the mercy of his devotees. Okay, so I'll stop here if anybody has any questions or any comments. Is it clear?
Yeah, yes.
Satisfactory?
Very beautifully.
So how do we fight for justice, stand for justice, and stand for our purpose?
Stand for our purpose?
Stand for community's purpose or society's purpose. Even as we are mentioning about humility and tolerance and endurance, a little bit of a longer
One Vaishnava saint during the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came and asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu a somewhat impudent question. He said, "You people say that the jiva is feminine by nature and that Krishna is their pati, their husband. But everybody knows that a chaste wife does not address her husband by name. And yet you people are constantly chanting Krishna's name, so how is that?" And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, everybody knows that the first duty of a chaste wife is to follow her pati's instruction. And Krishna's instruction is to chant his name. That's why we do that. In a similar vein, this question is, you sound like a kshatriya. Because this is the concern of the kshatriyas. This is the duty of the kshatriyas. And the point is that we have to perform our duty as service to the Supreme Lord. And this is mundane duty. This is not spiritual life. This is worldly duty. We have to do it with full enthusiasm. And we have to be inspired to do it with full enthusiasm. But we have to do it with the understanding that this is Bhagavan's order. This is Bhagavan's wish. So it's also very important that if one is not a kshatriya or not in a position of authority over other people, then we have to be very careful before exercising our desire to lord it over others or to correct others, really. Chanika Kautilya said very nicely, this is Niti Shastra again, not spiritual instruction. He said, a person should express displeasure commensurate to the adhikar that he himself possesses. So if we have the authority to chastise others or to dispense the law, as it were, then we should do that with full gusto. We should not hesitate. This is what the Lord wants. He tells us, you do your duty. That's the whole purpose of Bhagavad Gita is meant to get Arjuna to fight, is it not? So, I mean, many people understand Bhagavad Gita in many ways. Your question is predicated on that. But at the end of the day, everybody agrees, what is Arjuna going to do? He's going to
He
fight.
has to follow his dharma.
He's going to do his duty.
Being a Kshatriya and
The
fight.
point of Bhagavad Gita is not that, you should do your duty. The point of Bhagavad Gita is that, although you should, the point of Bhagavad Gita is that you should do your duty for the purpose of loving Krishna. And as a manifestation of your love for Krishna. So that's appropriate for Kshatriyas, not necessarily so for others, because after all, a Brahmana can't fight, right? Not only he's not allowed to do so, but it's not his nature to do so. So, the Kshatriyas are the ones who have this concern. And it's appropriate for them. Swe adhikare ya nishtha sa gunaha parakirtaka. Krishna tells Uddhava in Bhagavatam. Or he says in Bhagavad Gita also, Swe karmanya bhirata samsiddhim labhate nara. A person gets perfection by performing his own duty. We should not do other people's duty, and we should not neglect our own duty. I was in Hawaii once, University of Manoa in Honolulu, and I discussed with one professor there. I had some questions about the Upanishads. I was going to ask him philosophical questions. He wouldn't take it. He didn't want to talk about it. He said, look, you tell me one thing. How are you going to convince the man on the street of these 4 things? Number 1, karmanyeva adhikaraste. Your only right is to work. Tikrahega. Lekin, ma phaleshu kadachana, but you can never have a paycheck for what you're doing. Oh, we're losing enthusiasm fast, aren't we? Moreover, ma karma phalehetu bhuv, you cannot even take pride in your work, because you're not supposed to think that I'm the doer I'm producing the result, right? Or here's the coup de grace. Mate sangos tu akarmani, and you cannot not work. He said there is a word for this in English. What is the word? It begins with SL. Slavery, my friends. A slave only can work. He can't have any fruits of his work. He can't be proud of his work. He has to be humble. That's what it means, right? To be a Shudra. And he can't stop working. That's slavery. How are you going to convince the man on the street of this? This is what he asked me, this professor. Maybe it was Aravinda Sharma or Raghunath Sharma. I don't remember who it was. So, anyway, that's another matter. But this is Bhagavad Gita. The point is that everybody has to do his own duty. And even if it's difficult, you still have to do it. And even if it is imperfect, you still have to do it. If you do that, then you get realization into your spiritual nature. And on the basis of that realization, you can perform bhakti successfully. This is the point. You have a question.
So, Prabhuji, I have a question related to promotion. So, what happens when we are reading Gita? It says, do your duty, do not do others' work, do your work. But if you will keep doing your work, how are you going to get to next level? Because when you want promotion, you have to do your work as well as other people's work, so that people realize that yes, you have a caliber. Then only you will get promotion. So how do I understand this part? What is just I have to do and what I'm not supposed to do?
What is upward mobility in the Varnashram system? That's what you're asking, in effect.
No, basically like in a promotion, like in when you are working in an office,
Yes.
you are doing your work.
Yes.
But if you will keep doing your work, you will not be promoted.
They will promote you. Yeah. Well, no, here's how it works.
Okay.
This is the Peter principle, right?
Uh-huh.
Somebody does well, they give him more responsibility.
Yes.
So he's upgraded, right?
2080.
Then he has a different duty.
Yes, yeah.
But he's still doing his duty.
Yeah.
His duty has been upgraded. It's still not somebody else's duty, it's his duty.
Oh, okay. So your work domain has been increased. You are doing your duty horizontally. Okay, horizontally. Okay.
And this is the point about paradharma, because there are 5 ways that we can deviate from dharma. Mm-hmm. One of them is paradharma. And that's people try to do something more than what they actually have adhikar to do, and they fail.
Yeah.
For that reason.
Yeah.
Or people settle for less than what they're actually capable of, and that's also not good. Mm-hmm. It has to be right on the money.
Yes.
And that's why Krishna says, Swe Swe Adhikare Yanishta Saguna Parikirtada. The ideal thing is that you're engaged in this way. And that's why we have spiritual masters. The gurus are the ones who should guide us in these things. Okay? Okay, it's 8:30 now, and you're all busy people, and I don't know if I have the right to take more of your time. So if there are no more questions, going once, going on, going twice.
No, Prabhuji, I was just wondering, can you share a couple of your experience with Prabhupada?
I told you, just in the car. I said they're going to want one of three things. They're going to want to know, how did you join Krishna consciousness? What were your experiences with Prabhupada? Or talk about Vrindavan.
Yes.
Always they ask me.
So my next was Vrindavan.
Okay, I grew up in Los Angeles, just a few blocks away from where Prabhupada founded our Los Angeles temple. It wasn't there when I was born, but it came there. And as long as I can remember, it's always been there. And as long as I can remember, we always saw the devotees, and because we were so close to the devotees, you can't live that close to a temple without getting books from the devotees. So when we were kids, we used to look at the books and we just appreciated the pictures. We didn't understand anything, but I was a little pious also, because I was raised as a Roman Catholic, and I was into it. And so I had a strong sentiment for God. In fact, I even told my mother when I was 10 that I wanted to become a monk. And I used to take them all to all the monasteries that I could find in Southern California. I would make them take me there, rather. So, I had that bent. So as I got older, I began to read different things, and frankly, I was more attracted to Hinduism anyway. I was an Indophile from birth, it would seem. So I became a vegetarian. I was practicing yoga. I started to read books such as Bhagavad Gita, and I read several editions of it, actually. But I found that I couldn't make very much sense out of Bhagavad Gita until I read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. The reason that I couldn't understand those Bhagavad Gitas is because they were not written from the perspective of Guru Parampara. They were twisting the message according to their own hetus, according to their own motives. So, in effect, the reason I couldn't understand them is because the publishers also didn't understand them.
Absolutely, yes.
So when I read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita Yatharup, I thought, this is a very ostentatious title. As it is, well, who does he think he is? Only his edition is Bhagavad Gita as it is. What about all the others? But the proof of the pudding is in the eating. I had read those Gitas, I didn't understand them. I read this Gita, I did understand it. So he splashed hat. Bilkul. It was like somebody flipped on the light switch. Everything very clear. No stone left unturned, no question unanswered, everything comprehensively dealt with. So I was very quickly convinced, and I read Prabhupada's other books, and it took me some time to adjust to his unique style of delivery, which you all know. He doesn't pull any punches.
Which book?
All of them. Bhagavad Gita as it is, Krishna book, Perfection of Yoga. These are the books. Ishopanishad also. These are the books I read in the beginning. And hote, I became convinced of Krishna consciousness, and I began to chant and follow the principles. And I just became a devotee. And then the problem was that I was too young to join the temple. So, I had to wait for some years. Finally, around 75 or something, I went to the Rath Yatra in San Francisco, or maybe it was 76, I don't remember. But when I came back from that, I was so high with Krishna consciousness that I didn't want to go home again. And I called my mother from the temple and said, I'm in the Hare Krishna ashram. I would like to stay here. So my mother was there within 10 minutes to pick me up. And we had a long discussion about that. So she encouraged me, finish school and, learn how to drive and do all the things an American teenager has to do. And I agreed to that. But still, after some time it became, because when you chant Hare Krishna, you get a taste. And it's impossible to ignore that. And So then the next time I tried, there were two camps of devotees in the temple. Some of them were encouraging me to just go to some other temple and join there. Others were encouraging me, wait until you're legal age and then you can do as you wish. Somehow or other I figured out how to take a bus from Los Angeles to San Diego, and I figured out where the temple was without any guidance, no GPS in those days. I just found it by Paramatma, it seems. And I told him, I walked up to the door and knocked, and Gunagrahi Das Adhikari at that time, he answered the door, and I told him I wanted to surrender to Krishna. And he looked at me long and hard and he said, we should discuss this. So we had a discussion in his office, and evidently he was satisfied because he let me join. And I was there for about a month, experiencing Mangal Arti and Mahaprasadam and all the wonderful things that you get in the temple. And then there was a knock at the door. I answered the door, and there was a policeman there. And he said, this car is parked illegally. We're going to tow it, or you have to move it now. And I said, oh, okay, yeah, I don't drive, but I'll find somebody who can move it. Then he looked at me and he said, how old are you? This is in 75, I was 15. And I looked like I was 13. And I told him I was 18. And he said, what? I said, 17. He said, I think you better come with me. Oh. I think it was a setup, actually. In retrospect, it looks to be like it was a setup. So he took me to the station, called my parents, and they're looking for me frantically. I didn't tell them where I was going. Oh. And so they sent me home, and we had an even more uncomfortable discussion this time. And again, I made the same promises. And then, there were left-wing devotees in the temple, and there were right-wing devotees in the temple. So the left-wing devotees are just saying, no, just join Radha Damodar, just leave, shave your head, nobody will recognize you. Right-wing, same as it was before. But to my 15-year-old mind, I was infinitely more attracted to the prospect of traveling around with senior sannyasis all over the country. And that's what I did. And so they sent me to the East Coast, and from there I joined Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtana party. That's where I was trained up in Krishna consciousness. As far as my association with Prabhupada, there's none to speak of. But I did see him on his final visit to Los Angeles in June of 1976. One devotee had called me. I had gone to a private school north of Los Angeles. And I got out of that school, and I made my way to the temple at that time that Prabhupada was there. Early in the morning, I went to the temple around 7 a.m., right when they greet the deity, and Prabhupada came out to see the deity from his quarters. If anybody here been to Los Angeles ISKCON temple?
Yes. I have.
So you know, on the right-hand side, the doors to Prabhupada's room. That curtain opened, and Prabhupada walked out amidst so many sannyasis. He was coming to greet the deity. Now, when Srila Prabhupada walked into the room, the whole room just lit up, as if the sun god had walked in. I'm not exaggerating. You can talk to any number of disciples who saw Srila Prabhupada in person, they will all say the same thing. He was absolutely brilliant, literally. And I don't know how that was so, but he just lit everything up around him. And I was just stunned because it was instantly clear to me that this person is not from here. He's from some other world. He didn't do anything that was really otherworldly. He just went and he paid obeisances to the deity. He took charanamritam. He sat down in the Vyasasana, but somehow everything that he did was just spectacular and mesmerizing because he was doing it. And, it was really so stunning that even though I knew the song that we sang also, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, when Prabhupada started to sing that song, I was just so entranced by his visage and his demeanor that I couldn't even remember the words, I couldn't chant anything, I was just completely absorbed in seeing him. And he gave the Bhagavatam class on the 6th canto, dealing with the 13 witnesses that record all of our activities in this world on behalf of the Supreme Lord. And frankly, I couldn't get much out of it, not only because of immaturity, but also because I was still new enough to Krishna consciousness I could not get through that Bengali accent. It was so thick, you know. Sanskrit will say Vyasadeva. Hindi mein Vyasadev ko bolte hain, no? Lekin Bengali mein Bash. Bash Dev. Very difficult, you know, to understand a whole lecture of that. And, but I know that he was talking about that, and still, Tulayama Lavenapi, 1/11 of a second with a pure devotee can give you all kinds of perfection. Other than seeing him like this for a few times in that week, giving the Bhagavatam class, only one time I saw him outside of the class, and that was when he was going somewhere. Some limousine pulled up next to his outer door to his quarters. And he came down the stairs there and got into his car, and the devotee that I was with suggested that if we had flowers, we could offer flowers, but there were no flowers. Until I saw some Genda was growing in the temple garden. And being only 15, I just went and plucked those flowers, and I walked right up to the window. It was June, so the window was open. And I just held them in front of Prabhupada. He looked at it like he wasn't sure what to do. But he took the flowers, and he drove away. And that was the sum total of all my association of Prabhupada. That was the only direct service that I was ever able to do for him. But he accepted it. Really, from the very start, my Krishna consciousness was, the seed was planted by Srila Prabhupada's books, the seed has been watered by Srila Prabhupada's books, and the seed has, will one day fructify by Srila Prabhupada's books. Which means really, if you think about it, that whatever opportunity I had to become whatever I am in your eyes, that can be had by you as well. Because everything I got from the books, and that the books are just waiting for you to open them. Bhagavad Gita as it is doesn't mean leave it as it is. It means take it as it is. Read it. Assimilate. So this is a very, very important thing. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Anything else? Okay. One.
Thank you so much for your association this weekend.
So he's Sundar Ananda, and your name is?
Rohini Premadas.
Nice name.
Thank you.
But,
I want to know something. If it's not too elevated, like I just want to know, like every like devotee talk in this ISKCON talks about prema bhakti, coming to doing loving devotion service. So when you come to the love of Krishna, like then what are the symptoms?
9 symptoms, Rupa Goswami says. You're very concerned not to waste time. You're very concerned to always utilize every moment in Krishna service. Kshanti, you have forgiveness of the minor offenses of others, which is kind of like second cousin of tolerance, isn't it? So Kshanti Rabhyata Kalatvam. Mana Shunyata, you're devoid of this man, as we discussed already. Really, it's the same as the symptoms that we've been discussing already. They're all encapsulated in this pithy little formula given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that be more humble than a blade of grass, ityadi. But this is from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and it's discussed at great length by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila chapter 20, which you can review. So these are called anubhavas, and these are the symptoms of someone who is awakened, not prema bhakti, but bhava bhakti. Bhava bhakti is understood to be the preliminary stage of prema bhakti, the nascent stage of prema bhakti, the beginning, dawning of prema bhakti. Is that okay?
How to get also is
How to get these things.
how to get.
But it's very simple. There's no secret esoteric formula that you can only find from a bookseller in Loy Bazaar or Babaji at Radhakund. The standard process, the simple, easy process that Prabhupada has given for everyone to perform, you just do that. But you do it with full focus, full enthusiasm, full sincerity, full humility, full determination, patience, enthusiasm, etc. See, most of us, we chant Hare Krishna regularly. How many people here, raise your hand if you're chanting rounds every day on your japamala? Yeah, people are afraid to raise their hands high. But what kind of rounds are you chanting? That's the next thing. How many people have read Prabhupada's books? Okay, but how many of the books have you read? Have you read all of them? What are you doing? What are you reading instead? Right? So in this way, we actually just have to do what he's asking us to do. That's all. Just follow the standard process. The problem is that we're cheaters and we don't want to do that. There's no easy way to throw a hand grenade. There's no polite way to throw a hand grenade, right?
So,
We're hypocrites. That's what it means.
some devotees find it hard, even though they're all doing so many things, but they seem to be, like not able to get there. We're still not having the taste for the.
Some devotees find it hard. I'm going to tell you that all devotees find it hard. It is hard. It's tapasya. If it's not difficult, then it's not tapasya, right? But tapo divyam putraki yena sattvam shuddhyed yasmat brahma saukhyam tvanantam. Anything great, you have to pay for it. If you want to buy diamonds, you have to be prepared to pay for the diamonds. You can go and buy cubic zirconia if you want, at a fraction of the cost, but it's not a diamond. So we're in the market for the highest gem. So we have to pay for it, and the payment for us is the tapasya, and the tapasya for us is be more humble than a blade of grass, be more tolerant than a tree, be ityadi. But my answer to you is that there's nothing really esoteric or mystical about this. You just follow the standard thing, but we have to actually follow it. We don't get up in the morning and attend Mangalarti. We're not hearing Bhagavatam class every single day, isn't it? Sometimes we eat outside, or sometimes we're associating with Nanda. We all do these things. But Rupa Goswami has given us golden advice in his Upadeshamrita, Nectar of Instruction. That book should be memorized, because it will serve you well when you need it, if you study it carefully. Satisfactory answer? Okay. All right. If there are no other question, then we'll stop here. Thank you all very much.
Yes. We will do Krishna Aarti.
Arati, okay.
Yes.
All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Yes.